Hello everybody and welcome to Forever Motorsports on Forever Sports. The Monaco Grand Prix is upon us. Reese is joining me here as we're going to go and look at all the various things leading into the weekend. Of course, Red Bull leading the Constructors' Championships and the Drivers' Championships with Perez and Verstappen. Lots of things could happen this week in terms of points. It all comes down to qualifying, of course, in Monaco. Monaco, not the most exciting racetrack, but certainly one of the most historic, if not the most historic, in the world. Reese, your thoughts heading into the brilliant challenge, I suppose, in terms of time trial, that is Monaco.
Yes, well, Monaco is, of course, a very, very special race weekend on our calendar. It is such a spectacle. We have so many big Formula One fans, as well as a lot of celebrities that come to watch in Monaco. It is, as you say, not the most exciting race in terms of racing. It is just pretty much a time trial, with a lot of the race results being taken from qualifying the day before, as the track is just so narrow, and it is, with these new cars, pretty much impossible to overtake here.
Yeah, and I mean, we've just got a few facts, of course, that we're going to go through for Monaco going into this weekend, but just some did you knows and things like that, and then, of course, looking at the news heading straight into the Monaco weekend, such as Lewis Hamilton potentially going to Ferrari in the coming years as a replacement there in that Ferrari seat. We're looking at the Mercedes upgrades, of course, that are going into this weekend. So that's the big news, of course. And yeah, it's just some other small news items that have also happened. Not much else has really happened, but otherwise looking at what could potentially go down this weekend in the streets of Monaco. So Reese, just run us through here, the Masters of Monaco.
Yes, of course. We see just such incredible performances here from those outstanding drivers that we have in Formula One history, with the likes of Ayrton Senna, who famously burst onto the Formula One scene with a storming performance in the rain-soaked 1984 Monaco Grand Prix, and currently holds the record for the most wins at Monaco, with 6 race wins here, including 5 consecutive victories between 1989 and 1993. Graham Hill then, next on the list, took 5 of his 14 Formula One wins on the streets of Monaco between 1963 and 1969. Then onto one of my favourite Formula One drivers of all time. I got to see a few of his championship winning cars last weekend in Maranello, Michael Schumacher, who took 5 victories in the Principality here in Monaco between 1994 and 2001. Next on the list then is Alain Prost, who won 4 times in the 1980s, while battling it out against Sterling Moss and Jackie Stewart, each winning 3 times at Monaco. Of the current top crop of drivers, Lewis Hamilton has had 3 wins in Monaco, Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez, both with 1 apiece.
Yes, and you know, the interesting thing is Red Bull don't actually, for all that's got those 2 there now, Red Bull don't have a very good history at Monaco at all.
Actually, they do. Red Bull have really done well in the last few years. They won with...
Yes, recently, yes.
Well, they've won with Mark Webber, they've won with Daniel Ricciardo, Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez. They seem to like it here. They have a massive barge that they also bring in from one of the towns nearby. They have to bring it in over the sea, of course, because Monaco is so tight. And they have a massive big Red Bull energy station where they bring a lot of their celebrities and sponsored athletes to come and watch the Monaco Grand Prix.
So Monaco, of course, looking to be Red Bull's, what would it be, 5th victory because of the cancelled Imola. I'm just trying to remember now. Imola, of course, getting cancelled last week, so we're going to have the first bit of Grand Prix racing for a little while, because we haven't had a Grand Prix for a long time. Lots of floods, of course, not too far away from Monaco, obviously in the outskirts of Italy, and Imola around about there. Reese will know very well. Unfortunately, it was supposed to be a time when Reese was going to be on the ground at Imola. Nonetheless, that'll happen soon. I'm sure we'll get another opportunity to go and see live Grand Prix racing. But going back onto the Monaco Grand Prix, and did you know? Just a couple of these. I'm going to read out just a few of them, just some interesting things. So yeah, Jim Clark took pole at Monaco 4 times, yet he never claimed victory at the track. And another one here, more recently, in 2018, Charles Leclerc became the first Monegasque driver to compete in their home race since Olivier Beretta in 1994. After 3 failed attempts, Leclerc finally reached the checkered flag on home soil for the first time in 2022. Of course, lots of eyes will be on the Monegasque of Charles Leclerc, who's been seen driving around in his Ferrari in the streets of Monaco this week leading up to his home Grand Prix. Could he perhaps pull something off for Ferrari? Of course, Ferrari have had some decent qualifiers so far this season, and Monaco's all down to qualifying. So maybe Charles Leclerc could get a decent qualifying time in.
Yes, he will certainly have to fight it out with Fernando Alonso and Max Verstappen, and of course Sergio Perez, who is the king of the street circuits so far this year. Lots of talk, though, going into this race weekend from Fernando Alonso, who seems quite confident with the Aston Martin's performance. I wonder if they are also bringing some upgrades this race weekend with the likes of Mercedes.
Yeah, I'm certainly hoping to see a very good performance from Aston Martin. I think, funny enough, this might be a weekend where the points are really quite scattered throughout the bunch, because if Red Bull don't qualify 1 and 2, they're not going to finish 1 and 2, I don't think. Not unless everybody ahead of them that happens to have finished higher manages to crash out in the race, because it's so unlikely that you'd be overtaken in Monaco. You'd have to do really well to get overtaken, essentially.
The only way we've really seen drivers able to make overtakes, it's not even on track. You have to do it with your strategy. Yes, with your pits. I mean, we've seen it in the past with the Red Bulls and the Ferraris, where the Red Bulls just caught the Ferraris out and were able to leapfrog them in the pits. But we'll have to see what happens this race weekend. There is also a lot of rain scheduled, so we could have another very, very exciting race on our hands here in Monaco.
Yeah, and going back to the whole overtake story, of course, one of the only ways you can overtake is undercutting through the pits and through strategy like that. But if you do get held up behind other drivers, you can't go quicker, and that could lose you time in terms of trying to overtake those people in the pits. So even though Red Bull might be aiming for that sort of strategy, if they should not finish 1 and 2, they're going to have to try and get around people to make up time. And if they get stuck behind slower cars, then they're going to be stuck behind slower cars.
I mean, never mind slower cars. We've seen in the past in Rasgas where I think it may have been Pascal Wehrlein in the Sauber who managed to lose it and just completely block the entire road, and everyone had to stop behind him. They were not able to get past at all. I mean, if that happens and you're racing against P1 and you get caught by that marker like that, that can completely ruin your race if you do not get a safety car.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a ridiculous thing in Monaco. And just going on to more ridiculousness, just a couple more facts for you as well. The hairpin, of course, the very famous hairpin there in Monaco, is the slowest corner in the F1 calendar, taken at just 48 kilometers an hour. That's what me, you, and everybody at home drive at. The corner has had a number of names through the years. Originally the station hairpin, and then the Lowe's hairpin. It's now named after the hotel which sits on its outside of the track, the Fairmont. And of course, just another little fact for you here. McLaren have led more laps on the Monaco Grand Prix than any other team.
Don't know if we'll see them leading any laps of this race
No. They've completed 916 laps in the lead. Michael Schumacher is the driver to have led more laps here than any other driver, having led 435 laps over the course of his career. Insane, that. And just one more little fact for you here. 82 different drivers have stood on the Monaco Grand Prix podium over the past 70 years. Ayrton Senna took the most top 3 finishes, 8 in total, while Sebastian Vettel and Lewis Hamilton each finished in the top 3 at Monaco 7 times.
Yes, such an amazing track, of course, to watch. Unfortunately, the racing is not so great. I mean, I think we certainly need to bring some changes in the sport to allow racing to be a bit closer on street circuits like this.
Yeah.
Because these current cars are just so wide and so long, it just does not promote any close racing at all. And if you try to make an overtake here, I think both cars will pretty much end up in the wall.
Yeah, it's the cars are too big, unfortunately. That's the problem with Monaco and a lot of street circuits, some of them. The cars now are huge, and that's the problem, is that there's no space to now overtake. But moving on to a couple of changes that have happened this year with regards to Monaco, is that F1 has stopped the Thursday practice at Monaco Grand Prix. And if you'll know, and if you've been watching Formula One, Monaco usually has the first practice on a Thursday to then break on the Friday before continuing on the Saturday and the Sunday. And here is why they have stopped the practices taking place on the Thursday. Otherwise, that would have been today. Formula One so it says, until the changes made last year, drivers would have tackled the challenging twists and turns of the Principality on Thursday before taking off. The tradition is no more. The Ascension Day is the reason. I think the Monaco Grand Prix traditionally coincides with the Monegasque Ascension Day bank holiday. The holiday falls on the Friday of the event, so F1 has historically paused operations to mark the day, allowing local traffic to pass through the Principality streets with relative ease, whilst local businesses were able to use the break to restock before what would be a hectic weekend period. But for 2022 and 2023 now, F1 took the decision to remove the break day and revert to a more familiar 3-day weekend schedule. So quite interesting the fact that Monaco themselves have a bank holiday, or the alternative, a national holiday
race weekend
for the Grand Prix weekend almost, because it literally falls on the Friday of the F1 event. It's scheduled in any certain time. It's when the F1 is, and that just tells you how important Formula One is for Monaco.
Yes, just before we move on to the next article, just another fact that I saw that we had historically we've had Monaco have been in charge of all of the production as well as the direction of the footage for the Formula One race weekend. But this year, Formula One have decided to take back that from Monaco. Thank goodness, because often in the past we've seen terrible directing. Often we see there's a battle for the front, and then we go and see Lance Stroll at the back. I mean, really. So it's quite a welcome change for sure that we are going to have Formula One taking over directorship for the Formula One Monaco Grand Prix race weekend. I'm sure it will be a lot better than what we've had in the past.
Yeah, I'm certain that we won't be faffing about at the back with the Alpha Tauris and the Alfa Romeos, and more faffing about with those Mercedes drivers, Ferrari drivers, and Red Bull drivers. And speaking of Mercedes, of course, lots of news this week. Before we get even into Mercedes' big upgrades that are coming this weekend, hint, hint, nudge, nudge, before we get into it, just so you stick around for a little bit longer. Side pods are the big talk, of course. But the other big talk in Mercedes is that of Lewis Hamilton and his potentially going to Ferrari. What do you know about this, Reese?
Well, I can pretty much shoot this down almost immediately, but I will wait for that for a few minutes. But there's been a lot of talk, of course. It is that time of the season where we have silly season pretty much taking over, where drivers' contracts are coming to the end at the end of 2020. Well, what are we in now? 2023. Yes, so Lewis Hamilton's contract comes to an end at the end of this year. So, of course, there are going to be a lot of rumours, as per usual, when you have such a high caliber driver coming to the end of his contract. But there's been a lot of talk about Ferrari wanting to sign Lewis Hamilton. Of course, I'm sure Lewis would prefer to stay with Mercedes if they can get to the bottom of their issues with their zero side pod car, or, as we'll talk about later, a side pod car. But the biggest part of the rumours of him going to Ferrari is the fact that they are reportedly going to offer him £40 million a year to race in the red Ferrari seat.
Yeah, I mean, it's I know it's all ridiculous talk, but at the end of the day, it's not abnormal for Ferrari to go and do this sort of thing, because we have seen Ferrari go and get great drivers near the end of their careers to come in and fill that spot. We saw that with Sebastian Vettel, of course, and the likes of, yes, Michael Schumacher wasn't at the end of his career, but was certainly there for many, many, many years. And they went and got back Kimi Raikkonen again as well, after having a great season, great couple of seasons with them prior to that, many years before that. So they're not adverse to going and getting a seasoned professional back in for a couple of seasons. So it wouldn't be unlike Ferrari.
It certainly worked for them in the past with Michael Schumacher. Of course, he wasn't as seasoned back then, but he was in Benetton. He won his first championship with them. He could have stayed on and won more championships with them, but Michael decided to go across to Ferrari and give himself a bit of a challenge. Maybe that is what Hamilton is looking for at the moment. A bit of a challenge to build up a team from not necessarily race wins. I mean, Ferrari are able to win races, but maybe just to structure the team a bit better and allow them to, for him to tell them where they need to make changes. Of course, they've got Fred Vasseur, their new team principal, who has come out already and said all of this is just as it seems. It's just rumours. They haven't had any contract talks with Hamilton or his management so far. But as we know in Formula One, where there's smoke, there's often fire.
Yes, I know. And the good thing is that a lot of these stories, a lot of them gibberish and rubbish and a lot of that stuff. But sometimes, as we says, if there's smoke, there's fire sometimes. And I would not be surprised as well, because of course team principals are never going to go out and say, yes, of course we are going after Lewis Hamilton and things like that. So I doubt very much they are, but wouldn't be surprised.
You'd be stupid not to take a dig at getting Hamilton in your seat. He is a seasoned professional with 7 world championships. I'm sure every team on the grid would love to have him. Whether they could afford them, though, that is the question.
Yeah. And of course, now we move to the next little piece of information. That is, of course, the amazing thing. So I've just got a little bit of the image right ahead of my face here, which is quite funny. But I'm just going to move that ahead of myself. There we go. Look at that. So one thing that we can look forward to this weekend, well, speaking of Mercedes and Lewis Hamilton, is the big upgrades that have been leaked online ahead of it, and that we've seen for Mercedes heading into the weekend. So Formula One journalist Albert Fabrega has taken to social media to share a photo of the reported new side pods on the Mercedes W14 ahead of the Monaco Grand Prix. The Silver Arrows were due to unveil a radical shake-up to their car at Imola prior to the race's cancellation. That would have made a lot more sense, because unveiling upgrades to Monaco is a bit of an odd one, considering it's a very difficult racetrack. Nonetheless, the team currently find themselves unable to compete with Red Bull in their dominant RB19 and have pinned that on their notorious zero-pod design this season. And big news of the week is the fact that they no longer have zero pods.
Well, it is a bit deeper than just the side pods. I've been, of course, going into it quite a lot today. I am putting together a technical analysis video for all of you guys, and that shall be up hopefully shortly this race weekend. It's not just the side pods that they have made radical changes to. Most of their front suspension is completely different. Trying to address the they have braking issues quite a lot. You hear George Russell and Lewis Hamilton talking about their front suspension changes are hoping to tackle that quite a bit better. But of course, the major aesthetic change that you can see is those side pods finally being brought back. Whether this is going to allow them to compete immediately, I don't think so. They've got 1.5 years now to catch up on the rest of the grid.
Yeah.
I mean, they've all been running side pods for 1.5 years. Mercedes have adamantly stuck to the zero side pod design, and now they have to catch up 1.5 years of R&D, 1.5 years of error analysis. This has really bit them in the bum.
Yeah, I mean, just to go further on and furthering on from what Reese is saying, bring a significant upgrade package like the one that we're talking about to the narrow street circuit of Monaco is really quite risky. Of course, Monaco being one of the most difficult tracks to race for all these drivers, and so tight, likelihood of putting their car into the wall quite highly likely. And when you're running upgrades, you don't really want to be doing any sort of repairs and having to do damage limitation, because you're wanting to see how the car can get around. And also, you're not really going to get a good idea of how well the upgrades have managed to work, because it's not a normal track.
It is such a slow street circuit as well. Of course, as you said earlier, it has the slowest corner on the Formula One calendar, which means that if they're trying to do any aerodynamic analysis, you're not going to get very good data from it, because you don't have any long straights to get some good fluid dynamics testing, where they paint those cars in those high-vis paints, which allow them to see how the air flows down their car. You're not going to get a lot of that, because it's so slow, and you don't have a long straight to allow that paint to really show you where the air is moving over that car.
No, as I said, so lots of things to go and talk about, and of course, as Reese says, he's going to be doing a deep dive into all of those changes for the weekend. But could this potentially put Mercedes back into the question of future races? Who knows? As I'm sure it's the step in the right direction for the Silver Arrows, or / the Black Arrows now, as I think I might call them. But
Carbon arrows.
The Carbon Arrows, yes. But nonetheless, Mercedes got lots of work to do. But could this potentially lead them in the right direction for George Russell and Lewis Hamilton and Toto Wolff and all the other buggers at Mercedes? And we move on to just the last little bit of news with regards to those upgrades, and that's exactly what we're pretty much saying, is the fact that Mercedes must not draw too many conclusions from the upgrades, says team principal Toto Wolff.
Yes, I mean, they are currently 122 points adrift from Red Bull after only 5 races so far this season. Mercedes were originally going to bring their new developments to the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. Of course, we know that was unfortunately cancelled due to the drastic weather conditions that were taking place in the Emilia-Romagna region, which I think unfortunately even bit them further due to the fact that they were not able to get some testing done. I think that's pretty much what they were planning in Emilia-Romagna or Imola. They were pretty much just going to be doing testing that entire race weekend. They were writing it off But this race weekend in Monaco is where they have now brought these upgrades. The revised calendar means that Monaco is now the starting point of the European leg of the season, said Wolf. It is a unique event, but will still provide an opportunity to learn about the upgrades to the W14. But we also need to be careful not to draw too many conclusions from this one event. We are introducing the first step in a new development direction. It's about time. I'm sure many Mercedes fans will be happy that they have finally dropped that zero side pod design. We can call it a concept because it was
a concept that never worked.
That never actually gave them any race wins in a season and 5 races. It won't be a silver bullet, says Wolf. From my experience, they do not exist in our sport. We hope that it gives the drivers a more stable and predictable platform. Once again, going onto that front suspension, it should give them a lot more stability in braking as well as turning. We hope that it gives the drivers a more stable and predictable, as I said, then we can build on that in the weeks and months ahead. Formula One is tough. It's a competition that does not allow mediocrity. We are not where we want to be, but there's no sense of entitlement. It's just about hard work to get us to the front. And unfortunately, Mercedes has a lot of hard work ahead of them in the next, I think for the rest of the season, really, we're not going to see them challenging for the front. They may now really fall to the midfield with these upgrades until they get to grips with it.
Or they could suddenly find themselves right at the front after qualifying, and it'll be the most hilarious thing in the world.
I would be extremely, extremely surprised.
Of course, it's 0.00001% chance, but perhaps, maybe, I'm going to do this for all the Merc fans who are so desperate to see their team get back into winning position. Maybe this is the upgrade they always needed, and that car's going to be suddenly quicker than that Red Bull.
I mean, the only data they have at all on side pods is from Spain testing in early 2021. That is it. They have, I think, 2 days worth of data on that from when they were still hiding their zero side pods concept. And that's it. I mean, they have really, really found themselves on the back foot here. Just from, I think it's Naomi Schiff here speaking, I don't think he's considering it, leaving Mercedes, talking about Lewis Hamilton with the Ferrari contract negotiations. But if these upgrades do not live up to what Mercedes are hoping that they will, potentially, let's talk about next season, and they start poorly again, then he will be considering it in what manner he wants to end his Formula One career. Of course, that is, I mean, you have to give it to Hamilton. He has had a stellar career up until this point. You don't want to end up finishing your career being in the back. I mean, you want to be still challenging for races. Last year was his first season in Formula One where he hasn't won a race. I mean, he will be fuming about that, I'm sure.
Yeah. As I say, this is all in anticipation of the Monaco Grand Prix. So, lots and lots of things to look forward to, of course, in what is arguably the most dire race to watch, but the most famous and most luxurious event, I'd almost say, in the world calendar for any sport. It is, of course, Monaco Grand Prix in Formula One. Just quickly going into this weekend, of course, we're looking at the driver standings here. We've got Max Verstappen in first place, Sergio Perez in second, Fernando Alonso in third. That little friend that's always there, the third wheel, that is Fernando Alonso. Lewis Hamilton, however, in that Mercedes is currently sitting fourth. Carlos Sainz in fifth, George Russell in sixth, and the Monegasque of Charles Leclerc in seventh, with the following Aston Martin, Lance Stroll in eighth. Can any of those teams manage to get something up on those two Red Bulls? Up at number one, of course, Red Bull still leading the Constructors' Championship by a hell of a long way already. And other teams to sort of look out for. Of course, Alpine racing in what is almost a home, but not quite a home Grand Prix. Of course, Monaco in between Italy and France, so almost home for Alpine. Alfa Romeo as well will be looking to try and have a decent few fans there, hopefully supporting Valtteri Bottas and Guan Yu Zhou. Oscar Piastri in the McLaren and Lando Norris in the McLaren will be needing to try and do something this weekend to sort of get their season back on track.
Yes, just touching on the McLaren, they also have brought in a special livery for this race weekend. We saw them doing it, new snigger, but yes. They have brought in a Triple Crown livery, just paying homage to their, I think it was an Indy 500 win, Le Mans win, as well as a Monaco Grand Prix one. So they have a black nose on their car, a white central part, and then orange at the back. A lot of people saying it looks like a cigarette, but it is a welcome change, at least to McLaren. I'm sure fans will be excited about the livery, but Will we be seeing much of it? I don't think so down in P18. And
Well,
P19
maybe with less orange paint, it might be a slightly lighter because white paint is lighter than darker paint. So it's a little bit more white. So maybe that's all the pace they need.
I still don't think it's going to fix McLaren's
No,
woes,
not at all. And of course, other teams that are in trouble at the moment: Haas, AlphaTauri, and the Williams. So could those teams do something in the midfield? This is all in anticipation of the Monaco Grand Prix. Guys, thank you so much for watching Forever Motorsports going into this weekend. Big weekend. Reese, thank you so much for being here as well. I've been Mark. Reese has been Reese. You have been watching Forever Motorsports. Let's get into the Monaco Grand Prix. Cheerio.
Hello everybody and welcome to Forever Motorsports on Forever Sports. Today's guide on how to watch the 2023 Formula One season, which kicks off this weekend. The Bahrain Grand Prix will officially get the season underway, and there is just so much action between now and about November when the season will come to an end. Just races all around the world, more sprints, more races, a busier season than ever, and I think it's going to be a very interesting season to see exactly if Red Bull can continue to sort of assert their dominance, if we're going to see Mercedes coming back, what are we going to see? And the question is, how can you watch all the action throughout the season? Now, the first things first is that we will do videos for every single Grand Prix. We will do videos on how to watch that particular Grand Prix on a free-to-air broadcaster. Which means that as long as you subscribe to the channel and you monitor us, you'll be able to sort of find out how to watch every single race on a free-to-air broadcaster. And so make sure you subscribe to the channel for that. Now, to be able to do that, though, however, there are very different broadcasters from around the world. So what you're going to do is you're going to get yourself a VPN. I recommend using ExpressVPN because we've tried and tested it and it just works. So what you're going to do, link in the description, get ExpressVPN, get yourself that year subscription as well. If you sign up for a year subscription, you'll actually get an extra 3 months for free, which means you'll be able to start watching from this weekend and it'll cover you up to about June next year. You're going to install ExpressVPN and it's going to come up something look like that. And you think if you click on the right hand side there, you're then going to get these this pop up, and those are all the locations of all the various places where you can connect to sort of servers. And what it does, it kind of geolocates your device. So for example, for Bahrain, there are free-to-air broadcasts in Belgium as well as in Austria. So you connect to those locations and you go to those sites. But if you totally wanted to watch the entire season, my recommendation would be to get F1 TV Pro. Now, it is only available in certain locations, that being the US, the Netherlands, Sweden, I think Spain, Germany. Then you'll need to use ExpressVPN if it's not covered in that region. And again, so what you do is you go on ExpressVPN, you go and select the United States, and then all you do is you turn it on. As soon as this goes green, it means that you are currently connected to a server in the United States. You're then going to go and sign up for F1 TV Pro, which is $45 for the entire year. Alternatively, it is $5 a month, which is really not a lot of money. And you can get so many more things. You can watch onboard footage with individual drivers. You get behind-the-scenes content. It really is the best way to watch Formula One. However, you can only watch it in those regions. And that is where a VPN, like ExpressVPN, will come in clutch and enable you to really sort of get the most out of F1 TV. Check out the description for a sort of step-by-step guide on exactly how you can do it. Apart from that, we'll see you guys throughout the season.
Good afternoon and welcome to Forever Motorsports on Forever Sports. Today we are watching along the Monaco Grand Prix Free Practice 1. Very exciting race weekend ahead of us. Lots to talk about for sure. One of the big speaking points, of course, going into this race weekend is the Mercedes upgrades. Mercedes have brought some rather drastic upgrades to their car. Finally, we are seeing that B-spec Mercedes that we have been told about for, well, multiple races. They have finally brought those upgrades here in Monaco after the unfortunate cancellation of the Imola Grand Prix last weekend due to all of those floodings. Unfortunately, I know a bit about that firsthand as I was meant to go to that Grand Prix. Of course, a bit disappointed, but understandable due to the circumstances in the region. But Mercedes will be definitely on the back foot here, having to test these new upgrades here in Monaco, which is not the fastest street circuit at all, which it's going to prove quite difficult to test the new aerodynamics of this car. One of the major upgrades, though, that we have seen is that they have finally added side pods to their car. I mean, they are now around 1.5 years behind every other team on the grid. You just have to think that what they've done has really not worked out very well, having those zero side pod concept that they were so determined on making work. And I mean, here we are now, a season and 5 races in, and they're having to abandon it. I mean, really, it's quite poor from Mercedes. Certainly not what you would expect for the 6-time world champions. We don't have very long left to get going here now in Monaco. Just, I think, another 10 minutes to go until we get free practice 1 underway. We saw yesterday, though, in Formula 2, how the narrow street circuit of Monaco yet again caused havoc. We had 2 drivers who managed to wedge themselves together in the final corner and just managed to come together and completely end the session. It's something that we see often here in Monaco. We saw, I think it was last year, with Sergio Perez losing it in qualifying. Some say it was premeditated. Some people say that it was a mistake. Max Verstappen certainly was not very impressed with his teammate when he did that last year. But it is something that happens very, very often around Monaco. I was speaking about it in our preview yesterday evening, how I think it was Pascal Wehrlein lost his car the 1 year into Rasgas and just completely blocked the entire road. And I mean, if that happens, we're going to have a lot of red flags here this race weekend. I mean, we've seen it a lot in the past, and I think we're going to see a lot again this weekend. Just watching some views here of the paddock, just all of the massive big super yachts waiting, all the high rollers certainly here in Monaco this weekend. We often see major celebrities coming to watch the Monaco Grand Prix. It is such a prestigious event, that is for sure. Red Bull, though, this weekend, they always have a massive Red Bull energy station that they set up for all of their high rollers and their sponsored athletes that come and watch the Monaco Grand Prix. They normally have a pool which is quite famous for Red Bull. Whoever wins has to jump into the pool. But this weekend, because there are such big droughts in southern France, they are not allowed to fill up their pool with water. So they have filled it up with a bunch of plastic balls, which is quite interesting, certainly. Will we see another driver from the Red Bull paddock jumping into that pool this weekend? That is yet to be seen. They certainly have been showing such dominance in the first few races of the season. Will they be on top again this race weekend, or will we see who I'm currently seeing on the screen in front of me, Charles Leclerc? Will he be able to put a good race together for the fans in Monaco? Of course, Charles Leclerc, being a Monegasque himself, he will be wanting to finally get that race win here at his home Grand Prix. Once again, going over the Mercedes upgrades, of course, the big talking point being those side pods, but a little bit more, going into more detail, something that you haven't seen as much is the front suspension. They have quite closely copied the Red Bull's front suspension. Of course, they both have different types of suspension. Red Bull with, I think it is a push rod, and Mercedes with a pull rod. might be the other way around. But Mercedes have adopted what Red Bull have, which is a very high front suspension wishbone, which allows them to just stop the car from diving as much under braking. Just a great aerial shot here of Monaco. So incredible. Of course, all of the super yachts out in the marina as well as out of the bay, just waiting for the free practice to get underway. 5 minutes and 10 seconds left to go till the green light of FP1. Please do let me know though in the comment section where you are tuning in from, as well as I'm sure there is a poll there. Let me just have a look here as we now have the titles rolling. Just gives us a little bit of an insight as to where all of you are watching us from. It is always great to have some back and forth though between myself and you guys in the comment section. Yes, I do see we do have a poll running. Which team do you think will make the biggest improvement this weekend? I certainly think Mercedes, which is at the top of the poll at the moment, are going to have quite a difficult race weekend ahead of them, but also should be extremely interesting to see if their side pods do allow them to jump up the order a little bit. I see here Vishant saying El Plan, yes, for sure. A lot of anticipation going into this race weekend for the Aston Martins. Fernando Alonso quietly confident going into this race weekend, saying, I would be lying if I didn't think I could win this race weekend. I mean, I'd certainly love to see Alonso taking the win here in Monaco. Yes, Vashant just saying there, when will the Imola Grand Prix be held? Unfortunately, due to those floods, I don't think they are going to be able to rehold it this season. There's just no time in this really, really busy race calendar for this year. Of course, myself being one of the ticket holders, we've already received some of the information about getting our refunds, as well as they are giving, if you don't want a refund, you can get another ticket for next year. So they already are pretty much admitting that they're not going to be able to reschedule it for this year, unfortunately. But now we are here in Monaco for the Monaco Grand Prix yet again, one of the most iconic and prestigious races on the race calendar. Certainly everyone on the grid would love to have a Monaco Grand Prix win under their belt. It's a race where the result is normally determined by qualifying, which is quite sad, unfortunately. But it is due to the size of these new modern hybrid F1 cars. They are just so wide and so long. It makes passing pretty much impossible around this track. Benjamin Delrue just giving us a wave there in the comment section. Thank you very much for joining us. Great to have you alongside us. Not long left to go until we get the green light here in Monaco. 2 minutes left. Certainly very excited to have cars back out again. Of course, after that long break due to the Imola Grand Prix being cancelled. Just having some replays of past Formula One races here in Monaco, just some extremely iconic races that we've had in Monaco in the past. Some that come to mind are, well, of course, the race where the Red Bulls were able to leapfrog the Ferraris, where the Ferraris managed to double stack their cars but were not ready for both cars to come in. Another one that comes to mind is where I think it was Daniel Ricciardo as well had a bit of a blunder in the pits where Red Bull caught him in but then didn't have the tyres ready. We can see here just how difficult it is in these pits. I'm just having a bit of a look here at the moment. They are so narrow. Of course, this being a street circuit in one of the smallest cities, the smallest countries in the world. I think it is only around 2 kilometers long. At the moment, we can see in the corner after the Lowe's hairpin, once you go down and a bit closer to the tunnel, they actually have blocked off there from being able to see the ocean because they are trying to reclaim some of the land at the moment. I saw when I was there in Monaco a few years just how tight this track really is. You don't expect it to be so narrow when you watch it on TV, but it is just so narrow, and it gives you an understanding now why these cars are not able to pass at all. Just having a look there at those side pods on the Mercedes, now having a bit of a look under the visor of Max Verstappen. Lots of upgrades though coming into this race weekend from teams, of course, all bringing their highest downforce setups as possible, with Monaco being such a high downforce dependent track, with of course that Lowe's hairpin, now called, I think it is the Fairmont hairpin due to the hotel that is there. It is the slowest corner on the calendar, being only 48 kilometers an hour. That is, I mean, road car speeds that we're going through there. We already see here the Red Bulls out to the end of the pit lane. Now we have the green light for the session to get going. We have some high flow vis paint on the back wing of that Red Bull though, clearly trying to do some correlation work there between their sim data as well as real life data out here. Of course, Red Bull having reduced aerodynamic testing for this year due to their cost cap breach from 2022, or 2021 that is, sorry. Another great thing coming into this race weekend is that we no longer have the directing taking place from a Monaco company. It is now being taken back by the Formula One group, thank goodness, because we often saw in the past how the directing was absolutely shocking. We'd be watching a turn, we'd be watching an overtake happening near the front of the pack, and then we'd go back and look at Lance Stroll. I mean, it was absolutely horrendous. So I'm sure that will be that will be a much accepted change for this race weekend. Just having a look who is currently out on track. We have Sergio Perez, we have I'm trying to see who it is in the Alfa Romeo there. I think it may be Valtteri Bottas, as well as we have both Mercedes out, both Aston Martins, both Ferraris, both McLarens, and now as well both Red Bulls out on track. Just waiting for our timer to get up here on the Formula One side as Sergio Perez now starts his first timed lap of the Monaco Grand Prix race weekend. This is a very important race weekend for Sergio Perez, obviously the king of the street circuits. He will certainly be wanting to take another race win over Max Verstappen, as he currently puts in his first fastest sector, which gets taken away from him very quickly there. Sergio Perez will be wanting to make up some points again to Max Verstappen, who is currently leading the Drivers' Championship. Red Bull, though, very, very comfortably leading the Constructors' Championship at the moment. Ferrari, Aston Martin, and Mercedes clearly have to do a lot of work if they want to challenge Red Bull this year. Even with their cost cap penalties, they are still looking so strong this year. It's almost a welcome penalty from Red Bull fans even. I myself am a Red Bull fan, and I quite happily welcome those penalties this year, because I want to see closer racing. I don't want to see Red Bull being so dominant and taking every single race win. As we see now, Sergio Perez being held up at the end of his fast lap here. Very, very unfortunate for him as he now comes through that last chicane. Max Verstappen just on board with him. Let's see what happens when he leaves the pits. Does he maybe get a bit too close to another driver here? No, he just falls into anti-stall there, unfortunately. Possibly just a little bit out of practice after the long break that we had. Just saying the clutch alarm. The clutch is almost impossible out of the pits. Yes, it is a very, very key pit here in Monaco. It is so narrow. The pit boxes are so tiny. They are so small, in fact, that they have to make them double story here. So we see here now Christian Horner on the pit wall. The pit wall is on a second story here because there's just no space at all in the pits. Watching now the Monegasque of Charles Leclerc coming through the tunnel section. Always such a brilliant spot to watch cars. Now diving down into the tricky right, the left and double right-hand chicane. Just watching on board under the helmet of Charles Leclerc here, now making his way into the final sector of the track. Looks quite bumpy around here though in Monaco. Of course, this is a normal street circuit. They don't adapt the surface at all for the Monaco Grand Prix. It's still very smooth, but when you're in a Formula One car, any little bump you can really feel through the bottom of that car. This circuit is just so difficult for drivers in terms of focus and concentration. You really have to keep up concentration the entirety of your race lap. It is just such a demanding track with lots of undulations, lots of bumps, lots of tricky corners as well. And of course, your walls are just a few centimeters away from your car, as we now have some fast laps going in. Fernando Alonso with the first sub 118 of the race weekend, a 117.2 on a set of hards at the moment. Great to see, as now we have Lewis Hamilton finishing on another set of hards with a 117.4. Charles Leclerc, though, on a set of mediums, now putting in a first fastest sector. Let's see what he can do throughout the rest of this lap. Quite a lot of bouncing, though, coming from Charles Leclerc's visor cam there. 0.2 seconds up on everybody else's time at the moment. Looking neat and tidy there through turn 16 and 17. Now making his way up to Rasgas. Turn 18, a very famous corner there where Kimi Räikkönen quite likes to drink. There's a good bar there in Rasgas. Max Verstappen on the radio, though, say car is bottoming out a lot. That is not a good sign so early on in the season, or so early on in the season for the Red Bull. They'll certainly be wanting to make a setup change already, as we now have Max Verstappen starting his first hot lap of the session. Just looking into turn 16 and 17, such a tricky section there by the pool. We have had a lot of there, notably the massive shunt from Mick Schumacher, as well as Max Verstappen in qualifying the 1 year, just hitting his right tire on the entry into 16 and then hitting the wall into turn 17 as he had no more steering left. Verstappen on the radio yet again. Let's hear what he has to say. They don't seem to be showing that, unfortunately, but I will let you know as soon as they do put that up yet again. Great shots, though, overhead from Monaco. We can see there where they are reclaiming a bit of land, though. It is just such an incredible, incredible city, this. You cannot imagine how these houses and apartments go for absolute millions because they are in Monaco. Monaco, of course, being a tax haven, which is why we have a lot. Ooh, just watching there, Carlos Sainz going into turn 15, doing exactly what I was talking about earlier with Max Verstappen, but himself being a little bit luckier, not breaking that suspension. It was turn 15 and 16. I do apologize, not turn 16 and 17, as we now have a little bit of a scrap going on between the AlphaTauri and the car of Carlos Sainz. Currently, though, leading this session, we have Charles Leclerc with 1:15.9, closely followed behind by Hülkenberg, only 0.3 seconds behind on a set of hards. Leclerc setting his fastest time on a set of mediums. This track is also extremely, extremely difficult in terms of tire degradation because it is so undulating and so curvy that they pretty much don't have any long straights at all. It's rather funny, actually, that our DRS straight is even a DRS straight. In most tracks, they wouldn't have that as a DRS section at all because it is not really long enough. Habib also just in the comment section giving us a wave. Thank you very much for joining us. Please do let us know where you are tuning in from. It was always great to chat to you guys in the comment section. Please also do drop any questions that you do have. I would love to answer you guys. Also just makes my job a little bit easier when I do have questions to answer, of course. A little bit of a shake-up now in the top three as we have Lando Norris making his way up into second. Lando in the McLaren with that new... Oh, as I say that, though, we have now Carlos Sainz moving his way up into second, 0.3 seconds behind his teammate Charles Leclerc. Just watching on board now with Lewis Hamilton. Let's see how his car reacts now in the braking section, which was one of the biggest downfalls of the Mercedes. Now exiting that tunnel and making his way into the tricky left and right-hand chicane there. Looking neat and tidy, though. He looks a lot more comfortable in this car. Still making a lot of corrections, though. It's really weird to see his
steering wheel is shaking around quite a lot. Currently, the Mercedes are down in 15th with George Russell and Hamilton up in 12th. Of course, only on hard tyres at the moment and doing a lot of correlation work right now for sure. The Mercedes will be doing. As Hamilton now puts himself up into second with a 1:16.1. Guess I spoke too soon there. Williams now out on track as well with a lot of Flover's paint on their rear wing as now Carlos Sainz steals that fastest lap away from Charles Leclerc, who is currently on an out lap. So currently our top 5 is Carlos Sainz in P1, Charles Leclerc in P2, followed by Lewis Hamilton in P3, then Max Verstappen P4, and Lando Norris in P5. Of course, I start saying it and it changes up yet again. Max Verstappen has now moved himself up into P2, 0.598 seconds behind Carlos Sainz on a set of hards. George Russell finding himself a little bit more time there, pushing himself up into 8th position, as Fernando Alonso, certainly the driver that I am going to be watching this race weekend, puts himself up into P2. Hamilton complaining on the radio, though, saying the rear tyres are overheating quite a bit. Of course, they are now having to start from scratch again with their car as they have brought these new upgrades in. That McLaren out on track at the moment, looking so good in their special livery for this race weekend. They have a Triple Crown livery on their car this weekend. The front of the car taking its design from I think it is a Le Mans winning car. The middle being their Monaco Grand Prix winning car, and the end being their Indy car, of course. Looking really, really good. Lots of people, though, saying on Twitter that it looks a little bit like a cigarette with the burnt end in black, the middle being the white part of the cigarette, and the butt in orange. Very interesting for sure. But that car looks just so, so good out there on track here in Monaco. Charles Leclerc putting in a fastest first sector now. Let's see what he can do throughout the rest of this lap. Yuki Tsunoda, another driver who's been a bit of a talking point at the moment, puts himself up into 9th. Of course, being a lot of talk going around Yuki Tsunoda because during the break, we had Honda making some news with Aston Martin. They are going to be partnering from 2026 as Aston Martin's engine supply, moving away from Red Bull. Bit of a disappointment for Red Bull for sure, who thought that Honda would be moving away from the sport. So they went and designed their own engine, built their own engine manufacturing plant, and now Honda has decided to stay in the sport and are going to be moving across to Aston Martin. Just having a little bit of a listen to George Russell there as he gets pushed back into the pits. Sergio Perez currently in P20. Max Verstappen saying the rear is bottoming out quite a bit at the moment. The track is looking so, so busy right now as we see Sergio Perez finishing up his outlap. Max being told, of course, that they cannot sort out the issue right now from the radio. They need to bring him back into the pits if they want to fix that bottoming out issue. As we now see Sergio Perez just backing up the grid a little bit, Max Verstappen coming through to finish his hot lap, and now Sergio Perez starts his next hot lap on a set of hards. Let's see what Perez can do. Max Verstappen pushes himself up into 3rd place with a 1:15.3, only 0.449 seconds behind Leclerc and Sainz, who are both on sets of mediums right now. Alonso puts himself up into P3 with a 1:15.3, looking very, very competitive between the Red Bulls and the Aston Martins so far this race weekend. I certainly hope to see those two being able to scrap it out throughout this race weekend for that fastest lap time, as well as for quali on Saturday evening. Just watching Sergio Perez's hot lap, not putting in any purple sectors at the moment, but certainly putting in a couple personal bests for himself, as Magnussen pushes himself up into P8 with a 1:16.3. So tricky there into turn 11 and 12, or 10 and 11, I think it is, rather. Right there by the marina. as he now brings himself up into the pool section, coming into 15 and 16. That's super tricky right and left-hander where Max Verstappen lost it a few years ago in qualifying. Making his way into turn 18, also known as Rasgas, then into turn 19 and 20 to finish up his lap, now making his way down the one and only DRS straight in Monaco. That lap time of Perez only puts him, well, does not bring him up at all. He is still down in 20th position. Of course, we don't know what he's doing at the moment. He may still be doing some high fuel runs, might still be doing some correlation runs. We don't know what their run plans are at the moment. There's a lot of work, though, going on in the Mercedes pit lane on the front suspension. So I wonder if they're already making setup changes to the car of, I think that is George Russell at the moment. Norris on the radio. Just saying he's getting a lot of inside front under rotations at the moment. Just not getting a lot of compliance from the front end at all. That is not necessarily what you want to hear from a driver in Monaco, being such a tricky circuit in terms of the front end for sure. As we now see Fernando Alonso on a hot lap getting held up quite a bit by a Haas. And I think that is an Alfa Romeo. No, it's another Aston Martin, his teammate of Lance Stroll, just holding him up there quite a lot, unfortunately, for Fernando. There is just so much work going on this Mercedes of George Russell at the moment. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 mechanics all working on this car right now, trying to make some setup changes. As we see Lando Norris going around, I think that is turn 15. Yes, it is. Just getting so close to the barrier there. We always see how the drivers manage to just ever so slightly brush the barriers here. It is incredible how they don't completely lose it. Lando Norris also with a special helmet for this race weekend, as he is now back in the pits to make some setup changes, hopefully to fix those under rotation issues on the front. Thank you to everyone watching alongside with me at the moment. Great to have you all. Please do vote in our poll, as well as let in the comment section where you are watching alongside from. Carlos Sainz at the moment putting in a fastest purple on the purple first and second sector right now. Max Verstappen though on the radio yet again, just saying, mate, I want a box. I'm going to shunt like this with car setup at the moment. So very, very unhappy with his current car setup. As we see Carlos Sainz getting a bit held up by the McLaren of Oscar Piastri at the moment, possibly getting a little bit of a tow, but we do see he did get held up as he had a yellow final sector, but putting himself yet again in first place with a 1:14.4. Max Verstappen will be heading back to the pit lane at the moment to make those setup changes for sure. Not feeling very comfortable at the moment, even though he has put his car in third position right now. Looking like the more comfortable Red Bull driver at the moment out of the two is Max Verstappen, with himself being in third place and Sergio Perez quite uncharacteristically at a street circuit being down in 10th. Esteban Ocon finding a little bit of pace out there on track, putting himself now up into 6th place, 1.2 seconds behind the current session leader of Carlos Sainz. Max Verstappen now in the pits. Car is being wheeled back into his pit box. We can see that high flow vis paint on the back of his wing, just doing some correlation there between their sim as well as real life data. Of course, it is so valuable to get real data during a race weekend, especially for Red Bull, due to their reduced aerodynamic testing runs that they're allowed to do in their wind simulator. Interestingly enough, when I was in Maranello last week, Sunday, I went on a bit of a factory tour. Certainly extremely insightful into how Ferrari runs its operations, as well as the Formula One side of things. They have a massive wind tunnel that they have on the property. And while I was there, it was running. So clearly they were doing some work on a Sunday, which is a bit uncharacteristic for Ferrari, but it certainly sounded like that wind tunnel was on, and they were possibly doing some some fluid dynamics testing or some aerodynamic testing of possibly some upgrades to come in the next few races. Max Verstappen now on the pits, just getting a look at some closer views of this Mercedes. It's incredible how that top wishbone, it comes out and then just curves down a little bit to improve the stability. It is also very, very highly mounted to improve stability under brake. Ooh, as we see Lance Stroll just getting a little bit loose there into the final corner and managing to hit the barrier. Luckily, his car is all right, but that is certainly not what he wants to do. Just watching now, George Russell, I think this is in Miami. Just having a look at the difference between the front wishbone in Miami and the front wishbone now. It is so much lower in Miami compared to the upgrades now in Monaco, which is, of course, all to do with the stability of the car. As I said earlier, just having another look now at Lewis Hamilton's car, it is extremely, extremely high mounted, as high as it can go, pretty much to the point where it is bulging out above the bodywork of the front nose. Massive, massive changes, of course, coming on the Mercedes for this race weekend. Biggest change, at least aesthetically, that you can see is the big side pods, which we have been saying for months that Mercedes should probably just abandon their zero side pod concept and go with a more traditional side pod concept. Mercedes have brought those side pods here this race weekend, and we've seen how it is more. It's not a Red Bull side pod. It is not a Ferrari side pod. It's a little bit of a mix between the two. It's got those channels in the middle, which is characteristic of the Ferraris, and it drops off a little bit characteristically of the Red Bulls, but it just tapers a lot longer than the Red Bulls. It doesn't just drop off to a point. And this is due to the fact that the Mercedes, of course, cannot change their chassis due to cost constraints, which once again puts them on the back foot a bit. The chassis, of course, have been modified to accommodate the side pods, but they can't be changed so much to the point that they can just slap on a Red Bull side pod and go, cool, there we go. Unfortunately, it's a little bit more difficult than that, as we see a bit of a shot from the, I think that's the Alpine box there. Yes. Carlos Sainz once again at the top of the time boards with a 1:14.2. Lap times are starting to fall here as the heat increases here in Monaco. Charles Leclerc not far behind, 0.287 seconds behind his teammate. And then in third place, we have the Aston Martin of Fernando Alonso, followed by Max Verstappen. Kevin Magnussen, though, pushing his Haas up into fifth at the moment. Currently, a lot of drivers in the pits. We have Alonso, Verstappen, Magnussen, Stroll, Norris, Hülkenberg, Hamilton, Bottas, Piastri, Russell, and Zhou all in the pits at the moment, with the rest of the drivers being out on track still. Interestingly, that we have both Ferraris still out on track. Just watching a bit of a replay here from Valtteri Bottas. Did he hit the wall? He gets certainly very close. Ooh, but gets just so held up by a Red Bull there in Rasgas. That was almost a massive, massive shunt. Luckily, he was able to pull out of that and not hit into the back of, I think it was Sergio Perez. Perez has pushed himself up into sixth place now, promoting himself from eighth where he was earlier. Looking like he's on a bit of a cool-down lap at the moment as he comes through the casino section. Bit of work going on at the moment on Lance Stroll's car, hopefully not having to fix any damage due to him having that oversteer moment and hitting the barriers there. Lots of checks going on at the moment on his car, just looking at the floor, making sure that there isn't too much damage. Mark just saying there in the comment section, Ferrari clearly quick at the moment. Yes and no. Ferrari are some of the only drivers at the moment out on a set of mediums. Currently, we only have the two Ferraris and the McLaren of Lando Norris out on a set of mediums. Every other driver right now on a set of hards. Yes, I agree with you, Mark. It is all about qualifying here in Monaco. It is such a difficult track to overtake on because of these new cars, as well as because Monaco is just so extremely narrow. Esteban Ocon going through that final section now and putting himself, not promoting himself at all, possibly just doing some heavy fuel runs at the moment. Currently a little bit of a lull in practice right now. We have the majority of the cars in the pits right now. Logan Sargent on the radio. Very insightful from Sargent, just saying something's wrong. Just saying there's a bit of a weird sound at the moment. He is currently coasting down the tunnel and making his way now to turn 10. Yes, not looking very promising at the moment. Only going 60 kilometers an hour. It does not look like he is able to change gears. He is stuck in second gear, not giving it a lot of revs either. He's trying to nurse his way back into the pits, but not looking very promising. Hopefully he can make his way back and not cause a red flag. It has not been an ideal start for the rookie in Monaco, of course, as well as for the rest of his season. It has not been so great at the moment, with Sargent pretty much finishing at the bottom for the majority of the race sessions. Been a lot of talk, though, from the likes of the Mercedes, who, of course, have a bit of a connection to the new boss at Williams. They seem to be putting a little bit of pressure to get rid of Sargent and promote Mick Schumacher once again into a race seat, as he does make his way back into the pits there. Logan Sargent luckily able to nurse his car back into the pits. We should hopefully find out what the issue is as we have a look at James Vowles there, the former Mercedes man, and of course that person who Toto Wolff has been putting a little bit of pressure on to promote Mick into that Williams seat. Sargent on the radio yet again. Just saying they'll have to have a good look at that to try diagnose what the issue is. Hanan Safe just saying, what does it mean when a driver has the best time? In all of the practice sessions, it does not mean anything. It just, of course, gives us a little bit of an indicator as to who the fastest car could be for this race weekend. They don't get any points, though, for the fastest time in practice 1, 2, and 3. Qualifying is, though, where it makes all the difference. The car at the top of the timesheets in qualifying will start first for the race on Sunday. Also, no points will be awarded during qualifying as per usual, but it does determine the start order for the race on Sunday. Someone just saying there in the comment section, it should be Leclerc's weekend this weekend. Well, we certainly hope so. We have been waiting for a long time for Charles Leclerc to get a win at his home Grand Prix. Of course, Charles Leclerc being a Monegasque himself, good friends with the Prince of Monaco as well. We heard on Twitter yesterday, just hearing from Russell saying brakes don't feel like they're decelerating very well. That is not a good thing to hear from a driver not having a lot of confidence in his brakes. Just watching a blistering lap time now coming from Lewis Hamilton with the fastest first sector and a personal best middle sector at the moment. Let's see what this time can hold up to the likes of Ferrari as he now comes into the final two corners and down the DRS straight, wing wide open and coming across the line. Now, where does he put himself? He puts himself into first with a 1:14.0. Clearly, those upgrades on that Mercedes seem to be working. Just going back, though, to what I was talking about with Charles Leclerc. He apparently had dinner last night with the Prince of Monaco and was kind enough to invite Carlos Sainz to join him. Clearly getting along quite well with his teammate at Ferrari at the moment. Just watching a practice pit stop from Logan Sargent here. Just trying to see if maybe this is why he had issues. Possibly not putting the wheel on properly. Looks like both front wheels seem to be on securely. Oh no, looks like a bit of an issue for Williams in the pit stop practice that they did. They cannot get the right rear off of Logan Sargent's car. Hopefully we don't have a repeat of... There we go. It finally just came off now. I see. I was going to say, hopefully we don't have a repeat of Mercedes and Valtteri Bottas, which they had a few years ago, where they couldn't get that wheel off the car at all because the bolt was stripped, and they had to take it back to Milton Keynes to be able to remove that tire. It is officially the world's longest pit stop because it took, I think it was about 3 days to get that tire off of the Mercedes. But we have now seen that tire being taken off the Williams of Logan Sargent's car, and that may be why he had some issues. Lots of people joining us now on the stream. Thank you very much for tuning in. Great to have you all alongside with us. Please do let us know where you are tuning in from. Please do vote in our poll who you think will make the biggest improvements in Monaco this weekend. As well as please do check our description. We have a link there for you how you can watch the Monaco Grand Prix alongside us legally watching the actual Formula One footage with one of our partners. Interesting to hear that Logan Sargent actually did report quite quickly that it felt like the wheel wasn't on properly, as we now see the McLaren of, I think it is, yes, Oscar Piastri, number 81, with a lot of Flovers paint on his front right suspension. So possibly some suspension changes as well for the McLarens this weekend, who will also be wanting to make some drastic improvements to their car for this season, of course. Season so far. Yes, of course. 14B being that B spec, getting rid of that zero side pod concept. Max Verstappen on the radio again. Just being asked about how he feels about the change that they made, and just saying yes, it feels a little bit on the rear, but it's still doing the same things, still bumping quite a bit. Just being told as well he might have to live with it. Of course, the drivers are not happy when the car bottoms out because you sit so close to the ground there. It must be so uncomfortable for the driver when their car does bottom out like that. But once again, just to recap our top 5 at the moment: Hamilton in P1, Carlos Sainz in P2, Lando Norris in P3, Verstappen P4, and Charles Leclerc in P5. Max Verstappen once again out on track, but now on a set of mediums. So hopefully we'll see some faster lap times being put in by the Red Bulls. Currently not improving too much on his times, possibly due to a higher fuel run at the moment. Fernando Alonso now also on the medium tires, about to finish another lap time for himself. Let's see where this puts him on the board, as he promotes himself now up into P4. Just hearing some analysis saying that it doesn't sound like, during an onboard of Max Verstappen, it doesn't sound like the car's actually bottoming out anymore. It just sounds like the suspension is reacting differently now, and it's the suspension that you can hear reacting to the bumps rather than the car actually bottoming out. A lot of cars making their way back out onto track now as we are following Alex Albon with a visor count from him, just looking so quick into Fairmount hairpin at the moment. Making his way up into the tunnel section now, race control, just giving us a message. Incident involving car number 2, Logan Sargent noticed, or was noted, releasing car in an unsafe condition. That will not be great for, well, I'm sure the Williams will, having a bit of an issue talking now. The Williams garage will not be too enthused hearing that radio message from the FIA. Hopefully they will not receive too much of a penalty. If they do receive a penalty, it will most likely be a monetary penalty, not a grid drop. Currently, looking at our poll, we have 57% of people saying that Mercedes will make the biggest improvement this race weekend. I think, as I say that, it goes up again, 58%. McLaren making their way into second with 15% saying that they will make the biggest improvements. Aston Martin in third and other in fourth. Not too much happening in the Ferrari box, just a little bit of work going on the cars, maybe just making some few setup tweaks there. But so far looking very comfortable with Charles Leclerc currently down in P6. As we now have a yellow flag in sector 2, let's see what has happened. Just waiting. We have a spin. It looks like Kevin Magnussen had a bit of a spin in turn 10. Hopefully not cause too much damage for himself. Oh, yes, he has. He has completely destroyed his left rear. That tire is coming off of the rim completely at the moment. He will be trying to nurse his way back into the pits. Luckily, not too far for him to drive on the short circuit, but that will be causing quite a lot of damage to the floor of that Haas. Making a good effort, though, to keep it pointing in the right direction at the moment, not causing more damage to the car, but just making his way very slowly down now towards Rasgas, and then he can get into the pits. Just waiting for a replay of that to let you know exactly what happened. But once again, we have Kevin Magnussen, who has seemed to damage his left rear in the middle sector of the track. Fernando Alonso put in another blistering lap and is now only 0.064 seconds behind the fastest lap time of Lewis Hamilton right now. Just watching that car of Nico Hülkenberg making his way now into the pits, and now at his pit box, that rim is completely destroyed, as well as is that tire. Hopefully he will not cause too much damage. Just watching now, coming through the tunnel section. Yeah, and he hits the wall by the looks of it and just completely loses it, overcorrecting it and then having to... I think he may have actually hit the wall with his... Yes, he did. He hit the wall with his left rear, which is what caused the tire to pop off the rim and then caused him to spin. Barbara just having a bit of a... a moment there, talking about the W14, not so happy that they are once again competitive. But I do say, oh, we have a red flag now. The session is currently red flagged, possibly due to some debris from the car of Kevin Magnussen, who hit the wall there. Just waiting on this red flag to be cleared, and then we can get underway yet again. I don't think it should take very long. Just watching another replay of what happened to, I think it is actually Nico Hülkenberg. Sorry, not Kevin Magnussen, who hit the wall there. Yeah. The entire reason for the red flag is two tiny pieces of carbon about the size of my thumb. Unfortunately, in Monaco, due to it being so tight and these drivers being so spread out over the track, it's pretty much impossible to retrieve debris if there is anything out on track. So they have red flagged the session. It should take them all of 30 seconds to recover that, and then we should be able to get underway yet again. As we follow now, Fernando Alonso making his way to the pits. Lots of people joining us in our stream at the moment. Thank you very much for watching. Please do leave us a like and subscribe to our channel if you are enjoying the content that we are putting out for you. We will be streaming throughout this race weekend, as well as for Formula 2 and Formula 3. A very, very action-packed weekend here in Monaco ahead of us, as we now have 20 minutes left of the session, currently under a red flag due to Nico Hülkenberg, hitting the wall and stripping his left rear tire and throwing some debris out on the track. Lots of drivers, of course, getting a bit annoyed by that red flag, as they were all in some long runs at the moment, and then they had to, of course, abandon it due to the red flag. Just looking at the Williams upgrade here this weekend, looks like they have a bit of a steeper rear wing, just to extract a little bit more downforce off of that Williams here in Monaco. Just hearing that Williams currently have the fastest kph time at the moment, with Alex Albon going over 284 kilometers an hour down the main straight there. So clearly Williams being able to extract a lot more pace at the moment. Of course, in Monaco, we see how we often have the highest downforce setups in the entire calendar because of how tricky and turny it is here in Monaco. It is such a high downforce dependent circuit that teams often have a singular setup for Monaco and never use that again in the rest of the race calendar. Just having a bit of an issue at the moment with my Formula 1 stream, but that should be up again in a few seconds. I think we are out again. Yes, it looks like we have the green flag yet again for practice 1. Williams looking quite competitive with those new upgrades here. Just a lot of talk going on about that. Clearly helping them extract a little bit more performance out of their car. "18 minutes now left of this session. Not a lot of time left for teams to get some lap times in here, as we now see a lot of cars making their way out on track. Just following on with the Ferrari of Carlos Sainz, as he now comes across the line to start another fast lap for himself. Currently on a set of new medium tires, he will certainly be trying to put in some new fast laps for himself. Making his way now into turn 4 and 5. Making his way now into Mirabeau, down the hill by the casino. Now turn, I think it is turn 6, into Lowe's corner, the slowest corner on the circuit, going through there only at about 50 kilometers an hour. Not too different from when normal people go around there in their road cars, for sure, as he now makes his way down the tunnel at 210, 220, 230, 240, and making his way down into that section where Nico Hülkenberg lost the rear of his car. Extremely, extremely difficult braking section there. Once you come out of that tunnel, you get completely blinded once you exit it, and then you have to brake. It is not a very easy section there at all. Once again, adding to the complexity of this Monaco Grand Prix circuit, you certainly need to keep your concentration up at all times in order not to hit the wall and lose your car. We still, though, have Lewis Hamilton up in P1 at the moment for the session, closely followed behind by Fernando Alonso and then Carlos Sainz in P3. followed by Max Verstappen, who is currently on an out lap. We have a new Foster sector being put in by Fernando Alonso, who's on another hot lap right now. It's been such a great season so far from Fernando Alonso, as he does put himself into P1 with a 1:13. The first person into the 1:13s for this race weekend, as we see a lot of work going on at the moment on Nico Hülkenberg's car. Looks like he may have damaged that brake. I think they call it the cake tin there, the part that shrouds that brake, as he did hit it quite hard on that wall in turn 10. Hopefully he hasn't caused too much damage to the floor, as that is, of course, a very important part of the car, and you don't want to cause a lot of damage to that. But the car is currently up on the jacks, and I don't think he'll be getting out for the remainder of this session. We currently have Charles Leclerc on another hot lap. Let's see what he is able to do. Not able to improve on his first sector at the moment, but making his way into that middle sector now. Currently looking good, though, for Haas, not causing too much damage from that shunt. Biggest concern, of course, would be having caused damage to the gearbox, but it looks like it is all right at the moment. They haven't taken off the rear wing, haven't taken off any of the bodywork around the engine and the gearbox, so it looks like they don't need to fix that at the moment. Possibly trying to get him out on track, but they will have to work very, very fast in order to do that, as we now have Carlos Sainz and, well, Charles Leclerc once again starting another hot lap. Haas have brought another upgrade here in Monaco. They brought a new front wing with a couple louvers that just channel the air. This was not outlawed last year when Mercedes were trialing it. So a lot of the teams had a look at that and decided, yes, we'll try to replicate that later on in this season, if not next season. And we're now seeing Haas taking inspiration from Mercedes and using those little, they supposedly are struts to strengthen the wing, but they are using them as aerodynamic parts as well. They are called slot gaps, as we have another yellow flag in Sector 1. Who has lost it now? We'll have to see shortly who has managed to go off in Sector 1. Hopefully not red flag worthy yet again, as we have another green flag. Derek Tovar saying Sergio Perez won the race last year, Verstappen won 2 years ago, and Checo versus Max to be their race. Yes, for sure. I think we will see another race between the two Red Bull drivers for that top step. As we see a bit of a replay here, it just looks like we had people running the chicane there in turn 10 and 11. So not too much of an issue, but just two drivers losing it in the braking section there into turn 10. It was Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton who both managed to lose there. And then the yellow flag that we had was, I think, Kevin Magnussen into turn 1, just losing it a little bit on the brakes and then having to go into the runoff section there and spin around, which is why we had that yellow flag. 12 minutes left of the session, though, as we now see Sergio Perez starting a hot lap, as Carlos Sainz puts himself up into P1 with a 1:13.6. Sergio Perez currently up on the fastest lap time at the moment. Will he be able to keep up that momentum throughout the rest of this lap? We will have to see. The Red Bulls seem to be quite fast in the first sector, but then seem to lose a little bit of time in the second and third sector. Let's see what he's able to do now, just following him along the rest of this lap now as he makes his way up into turn 10 and 11. And now into the marina section and the pool section before Rasgas. Making his way now into turn 15 and 16 nice and cleanly. Approaching now Rasgas, the super tricky long right-hander. Neat and tidy though through there, as now he goes through the final 2 corners. And down that long, well, not so long DRS straight to put himself up into 4th position ahead of his teammate in 5th. 10 minutes left though of the session. Not a lot of time left for teams to do some running, as Max Verstappen seems to be on another hot lap himself. Max Verstappen was complaining a little bit earlier in the session about some bouncing and bottoming out of his car, as he's currently 0.3 seconds behind the fastest lap time from Carlos Sainz. Looks though like he has already aborted this lap time and will be setting himself up for another hot lap, as he now just pulls off to the side to let the Alpine through. Mark just asking there in the comment section, has nobody used soft tires yet? No, nobody has used a set of soft tires yet at all. Only medium and hard tires have been run in the session so far. We might see the softs being used in the second session later this evening when it is a little bit cooler. I think it's down to the fact that it is just so hot at the moment, and I don't think they'll get a lot of data because they'll just completely eat up the tires, and yeah, it's rather pointless when you're trying to do some long runs. Just watching a replay of Max Verstappen making his way into the pool section there. Neat and tidy there into turn 14, and then just losing it in turn 15, having a little bit of understeer, and then just having to cut the chicane, unfortunately. Just losing the lap there, unfortunately, but hopefully we will see him making another fast lap attempt there. Currently, our top 10 are Carlos Sainz in P1, Fernando Alonso P2. Great to see Fernando finding some pace out here this race weekend. Lewis Hamilton, certainly a bit of a shock with those upgrades from Mercedes, up in P3, followed by Sergio Perez in P4, Charles Leclerc P5, Max Verstappen in P6, Lando Norris P7, Albon in P8, Bottas 9th, Magnussen 10th, and then I can't make it out. Yuki Tsunoda down in P11. Sorry, I seem to have gotten the numbers wrong a little bit there, but you get the gist, I think. Lots of teams out on track at the moment. Looks like the majority of the drivers are out there right now. Carlos Sainz, though, in the pits, and Charles Leclerc in the pits. As now we have Fernando Alonso putting in another fastest first sector. Let's see what Fernando Alonso can do on this lap. Will he be able to put himself on the top step for practice before the time runs out? 8 minutes left of the session. Lando Norris currently making his way towards the end of the lap in turn 18, 19, and 20 now, and DRS wide open making his way down that long straight. Currently, he's up in P7. Will he be able to improve on that? No, not at the moment. 2.6 seconds off of his fastest lap at the moment, possibly just doing some long runs. As we see a Ferrari coming out of the pits, I don't know who that was, but watching an onboard now with Fernando Alonso just getting held up quite a bit. Once again, getting held up by traffic. That happens so often at this track, unfortunately, due to its nature being so narrow. It's certainly going to be something that they're going to have to take in mind during qualifying. We've seen in the past how red flags completely ruined the session with the likes of Max Verstappen on a fast lap last year, and not Carlos Sainz, Checo Perez lost it and just completely ruined that fast lap of Max Verstappen, but solidified his P1 himself. Max Verstappen now coming up to finish a hot lap for himself. Where does he put himself? And he does not improve at all right now. 0.5 off of the fastest lap from Carlos Sainz. Looks like his tires are possibly just a bit too old. He's not able to extract any more lap time from that at the moment. Just waiting to see what some other drivers can do. It looks like we have Charles Leclerc on another hot lap at the moment. His car bouncing quite a lot up the hill into the casino section. As we have, I think it is Carlos Sainz putting in a fastest third sector. Looking neat and tidy, though, through Lowe's hairpin and now coming towards the tunnel section. Looking so fast, though, through that section, sparking away under the darkness of the tunnel, locking up his right a little bit into that braking section in turn 10 and 11, but looking neat and tidy, still improving on his first sector. Let's see what he can do in the middle sector, making his way towards the pool section, 0.1 seconds off of the time of Carlos Sainz at the moment. Ooh, big moment, though, in turn 15 there. Just a large moment of understeer and just having to pull out and abort that lap. 5 minutes left of the session, so he will have to just back himself up, store a bit more energy, and attempt another fastest lap if he wants to improve his current lap time. Looks like he's going to be starting another lap as he pushes straight away down the DRS straight and back into turn 1 again. Let's see if he can get it a little bit neater. Just watching a replay. Yes, just a bit of a lock up into turn 10, locking up his front right, which will, of course, take away a little bit of time from him, and then making his way into the pool section, into turn 14, just getting so close to the wall there. Turn 16, I do apologize, and just having to back out from his lap. Just watching alongside Charles Leclerc yet again on his second attempt at a hot lap, not improving on his first sector, so maybe just getting some more data while he can. Max Verstappen, though, on another hot lap at the moment, looking neat and tidy into turn 10 and 11, but he has some traffic ahead of him, so he pulls off and just aborts that lap. We have another, oh my word, is that Logan Sargent or is that Alex Albon? That is a massive shunt by the looks of it. That, he's broken his front left and his rear left at the moment. That could be a gearbox change for Alex Albon. Massive shunt into turn 1. Broken rear wing, broken left rear, and broken front left, sorry. Just hearing what he said there. Just saying he's okay, thank goodness. But that looks like a high energy shunt there from Alex Albon. The session will be red flagged, and I doubt it will be resumed. That will take them longer than 3 minutes to clear that car. So unfortunately, that is the end of FP1 here, with a massive shunt from Alex Albon. We have the medical car making its way to him. Hopefully he is all right. He has said on the radio that he's okay, but they will, of course, check him out and do some tests to make sure that he will be all right. And we have from race control saying session will not be resumed. That is to be understood, of course, due to this incident, and only 2 minutes left of the session. Very unfortunate for Alex Albon. Just watching a replay now as he makes his way into turn 1. Does he lock up a bit? No, he just gets a massive amount of oversteer there and just hits the rear, and then that guides his front into the barrier as well and just completely destroys that car, scattering debris all over the track there and completely ruining his day. I'll be very impressed if the Williams garage are able to get him back out for FP2 later this afternoon. Thank you very much, though, for watching us, watching alongside us for FP1. This has been FP1 in Monaco, of course. Big news, though, from the session is the fact that the Mercedes seem to be so competitive, being able to make themselves up into the top 5 at the moment. Of course, other big news being the fact that there was a bit of a shunt from Nico Hulkenberg, as well as the massive shunt right now from Alex Albon, taking him out of the session and red flagging and ending the session here in Monaco. And trying to see what the teams are doing at the moment, if there's any work being done on these cars before the next session, but I doubt there'll be too much that we will see now. Once again, from race control, just saying the session will not be resumed, as there is, I think, only about 1 minute and 30 seconds left of the session, and it's going to take them quite some time to recover that car of Alex Albon, which had a massive shunt into turn 1 after completing a lap. He had a massive amount of oversteer, which just put him into the wall with his rear and then just slammed his front left as well into the barrier, completely destroying both front and back tires as well as his rear wing. Unfortunately, that may mean a new gearbox is needed for his Williams car before the next session, if they are able to fix that car in time for the next session. So just a bit of a rundown of our top 5. I think we had Carlos Sainz taking P1, Fernando Alonso in P2, then I think it was Lewis Hamilton in P3, Max Verstappen in P4, and then I can't necessarily remember who was after that, as I do not have the timing board ahead of me at the moment. But as soon as I have that, I will give you a race rundown and I will sign off for the end of the session. Thank you very much for watching alongside us, though. It has been a great session for us. Great to have lots of you watching as per usual. As we look in the Ferrari pits at the moment, just watching Charles Leclerc getting out of his car and getting undressed, taking off his race helmet. It looks like he has a special overall as well for this race weekend, of course, being his home Grand Prix. Just watching a replay here of Charles Leclerc's last moment that he had into turn 15 and 16, where he just had a bit of I think he touched the wall ever so slightly here, he actually lost it before he even got into that section. He had a massive hand of oversteer and just had to completely pull out from that lap time. Just watching here as they are trying to recover that car of Alex Albon. It is quite badly damaged, unfortunately. So there will be a lot of work for the Williams garage to do before the next session, if they are able to fix it at all. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like I'm going to be able to get those leaderboards up for you, so I will be signing off. Thank you very much for watching alongside with us for this session. It has been quite an interesting session in terms of watching some upgrades from the different cars in terms of McLaren, Mercedes, as well as the Haas team. Just watching another onboard of this shunt from Alex Albon. He seems to get into turn 1 quite cleanly, but then just completely loses the rear and just absolutely smashes into the wall there. But yes, I have been Reese for Forever Motorsports on Forever Sports. Thank you very much for watching alongside us this session, and we will see you very soon for FP2 later this afternoon. Thank you very much for watching. Cheers.